Sometimes we are reminded why we fell in love, whether that be with a person, whether that be with a musical artist, or whether that be with a sport. And tonight, I was reminded why I fell in love with the NBA, why I love basketball so much. We saw superstars performing at the peak of their powers, going at it, hitting big shots, hitting difficult shots, playing physical, hard-nosed basketball. And it reminded me of one of my favorite series of all time when I was just a young kid watching the Boston Celtics take on the Los Angeles Lakers in 2008 with Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Pau Gasol, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, all these great legends on the court competing at a high level. You could tell how much it mattered to them. And when you watch tonight's game between Victor Wembanyama and the San Antonio Spurs and Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, the physicality, the way that they cared, the big shot making stood out and just reminded me why sometimes I get romantic about the game of basketball. Why I think it can be so artistic and competition at the highest level between the greatest athletes in the world. This game tonight, Game 3 between the Timberwolves and the San Antonio Spurs, was everything that I hoped it would be in a series that we really need to be great, because when you look around at the other series in round 2, it does not look promising for long competitive series. Tonight, the San Antonio Spurs won 115 to 108 behind a legendary monster game from their superstar, Victor Wembanyama, who finished the game with 39 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 blocks, becoming the 4th player ever with Shaq, Hakeem, and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to have at least 35, 15, and 5 blocks. He had 16 points in the 4th quarter and was doing everything for his basketball team. And I love the fact that tonight he was 3 of 5 from the three-point range, but he didn't shoot a lot of those early in the basketball game. When he really started to feel like he was getting going, that's when he took a couple three-point shots. But he was able to dominate from the mid-range, dominate in the paint, grab rebounds over tough, physical Minnesota Timberwolves basketball players. This game had everything that I hoped for, and how Wemby performed was truly special. And these are the games that make us be able to say that is the best basketball player in the NBA. When you've watched the playoffs so far, we know that there's a guy that's about to be a 2-time MVP, more than likely, in Oklahoma City. Just won the Finals MVP last year, and like I said, probably will be the MVP again this season. But when you watch him play basketball, you do not get the feeling that is the best player in the sport. Wemby tonight gave me that feeling, and something that I've really been longing for over this playoff run. We saw Wemby go down with an injury in round 1. He was able to come back quick. But early in this series, and one of the great things about the NBA, one of the things that we love, is that every game makes you feel like that's the way the series is going to go. What I mean is, Game 1, the Minnesota Timberwolves came out and were physical and really put it to the San Antonio Spurs. It was a really good game, but it felt like, are the Spurs going to be able to compete and match that level of physicality? Game 2, Wemby really struggled. I believe he only finished with 11 points in that game. Game 2, the Spurs wiped the floor with the Timberwolves. They won by 30-something points. Wemby had 19 points because he only had to play 26 minutes. And you start to wonder, is this series going to flip and the Spurs are just going to dominate maybe the way that we expected coming into the playoffs? In Game 3 tonight, we got a super, super good, physical, tough, competitive, clutch basketball game between these two teams. The Spurs, I believe, hit their final 11 free throws. They were hitting big shots. Like I said, Wemby had 16 points in the 4th quarter. It was getting it done all, in every facet of the game. Stephon Castle would dribble the ball up the court, and there was a play with about 4 minutes left where Castle dribbled the ball up the court, and McDaniels was like bumping him. They came up and set a screen so he could get off him. Julius Randle ran up. Physical. Wemby set a screen. Julius Randle gets dropped to the ground, and the ball gets passed into Wemby. The physicality in this basketball game was special, and I want everyone to enjoy it because this is probably the most entertaining series we're going to get in this playoffs. Next round, whoever wins this series, my pick is the San Antonio Spurs. But, I don't want to write off the Timberwolves because they've been playing awesome as well. But the Spurs in next round are not going to be able to play this physical against the Oklahoma City Thunder because the NBA simply won't allow it. This game was truly epic. In the first half, both teams won each quarter by 1 point. The Spurs got off to a huge lead early. Timberwolves couldn't score early in this game, but they came crawling back, only lost that first quarter by 1. They won the second quarter by 1. We had a tie game going into halftime. We saw special performances from Anthony Edwards on the Minnesota Timberwolves side. Ayo Dosunmu came back from his injury and was able to play high minutes. Both him and Ant played really high minutes in this game. I just lost all my statistics on my computer here, so I'm just pulling them up on my phone as well. But Dosunmu gave you 32 minutes. Anthony Edwards finished with 41 minutes. He had 32 points, 14 rebounds, and 6 assists himself. So he played a really, really good basketball game. The Spurs have dominated this series through the first 3 quarters. They came out in the third quarter and I believe won that quarter by 7. And in the fourth quarter, it was just a back and forth physical basketball game where both teams were hitting big shots. And that's why when you're having the discussion about the greatest player alive, I just wanted to have a little hesitation to wait to see how Wemby performed in the playoffs, because in fourth quarters, when you need to hit a big basket, we have seen plenty of players come up short. In fact, James Harden has been reminding us the fact that he is one of the greatest regular season players of all time. And in these playoffs, he is absolutely wetting the bed. He's turning the ball over at a high clip, shooting super low percentages from the field, and just not getting the job done. So we wanted to wait. All I wanted to see was Wemby do it for a playoff series or two. And that is absolutely what he's been doing, because in the fourth quarter tonight, he had 16 points, 6 rebounds, 5 of 7 from the field, 4 of 4 from the free throw line. And getting it done in that spot against a team like the Minnesota Timberwolves and a guy in Rudy Gobert, who is probably the best equipped defender in the entire NBA to go up against Victor Wembanyama, because of, I believe they said Wemby's the longest player in the league, and I think Gobert's number 2. So he has so much length, but he also is very strong. So it's hard for Wemby sometimes to do his work in the paint, and that's what we saw in game 1. And you're like, how is he going to adjust? And that's what we saw Wemby be able to do. Do you have other pitches in your bag for when your main style of play is not necessarily working? How can you adjust? And it's something that we don't always see players be able to do, especially in the playoffs. But it's why these playoff series are so interesting, because you're playing each other for potentially 7 straight games. And guys are going to have counters to your counters, and it's going to go back and forth. Your coaching really matters, and the way that your players having multiple skill sets is really important. So when they take out the best parts of your game, how are you able to adjust? And Victor Wembanyama, obviously I'm talking a lot about his offensive game. In the playoffs, players are shooting 34.5% when guarded by him, which is 15% below their average. And the Spurs defensive rating is 96 when he's on the court, which is just simply unbelievable. It's not counting tonight's game because obviously it hasn't quite been loaded into those statistics. But we have so much to look forward to for the rest of this series. How will the Timberwolves adjust? I'm really hoping this series goes 7 games, but you have other players. The reason that I really love this Spurs team and feel like they have a real chance to win the NBA Finals, even though they're so young, is that even though some players, or a couple guys on their team, can have rough shooting nights, and other guys are able to pick it up. We saw in round 1, Dylan Harper have a monster game when Wemby was out. We've seen Fox. He gave you 17 points tonight on 7 of 19 from the field. We saw Vassell have 13 points. Stephon Castle struggled tonight with 3 of 11, but he still had 12 assists and was able to contribute on both ends of the court. Keldon Johnson gave you 11 points. Dylan Harper had 8 points on 2 of 6. So even though a lot of guys struggled in this game, other players were able to pick them up. And that's why the Spurs are so interesting, because they have so many, they're a very deep basketball team. And when you go into a series against Oklahoma City Thunder next round, that depth is really going to matter. If they get, assuming they get past the Timberwolves here. The Timberwolves, the fact that Ayo Dosunmu came back, I thought was awesome. I wasn't sure he was going to be able to make it back. We saw Naz Reid have 18 points. He hits big shots. He takes big shots. He closes the game for them a lot of times. They did a great job defending Julius Randle, but that's what, in game one, not only does Rudy Gobert do a great job against Wemby because of, some of the tools I talked about, but the Timberwolves are kind of uniquely equipped to deal with him, because when Gobert's not on the court, they have both Julius Randle and Naz Reid, who are strong basketball players, who are making it difficult for Wemby to get good, easy looks in the paint. And again, that's why his adjustment and the way he performed tonight, to me, is so impressive. He had 5 fouls in this game, midway through the fourth quarter, and he had to find a way to defend without fouling, which, you saw on a couple of occasions, some shots he maybe would have usually blocked, or at least tried to block. He kind of held back because he was trying to stay out of foul trouble. And I think in a sense that allowed him to be a little more aggressive on the offensive end of the court, when you're just talking about energy exertion. But Wemby only played 30 minutes a game. I believe it was like 29 minutes a game in the regular season. And in the playoffs, we've seen him ramp up those minutes. And so you have questions. How is he going to be able to hold up late in basketball games? Will he be able to play with the same energy, with the same physicality in the fourth quarter? Well, tonight he was absolutely able to do so. 16 points in the fourth, like I said, on a very high percentage. So I'm very pumped about the rest of this series. I love the physicality that both teams are playing with. It's hard to dribble the ball up the court. It's hard to get good looks, and it's hard to get in the paint, and that's the way that basketball should be played. You have two big rim protectors, and the NBA years ago was starting to go to a, small ball basketball was the big thing. The Warriors were playing Draymond at the 5, Kevin Durant at the 4. You didn't really have a traditional center on the court. But imagine that the NBA and what dominates in the league still is big men. You see a lot of teams that are left in the playoffs. The Knicks have Karl Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson. The 76ers have Joel Embiid, Andre Drummond. Cavs, 2 big men in their starting lineup. The Pistons, Jalen Duren, very physical big man. The Spurs side, Victor Wembanyama, Luke Kornet. Timberwolves, Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Julius Randle. A lot of big physical men in the NBA. And that really can matter, and it's one of the things that I love to see come back to the sport is rim protection. We know that the 2 best rim protectors in the sport are in this series. So I absolutely I love what I'm seeing. I love what I'm seeing from Wemby, and these are the things that make us be able to say that is the best basketball player in the world. Him performing big in fourth quarters, in important playoff games. Game 3 on the road in a 1-1 series, in a series that you were favored in pretty heavily, is big time. That's big time. And if he's able to lead his team to an NBA Finals run this year, it's going to be very, very interesting to hear the conversations that we're able to have about Victor Wembanyama. And he stayed relatively healthy. He had one freak, concussion that was a little weird how he fell. And he had some critiques with how the NBA handled his concussion protocol. But all in all, highly impressed by the Spurs. I think we could have a long series. I hope we have a 7-game series. And all in all, most importantly, I hope that whoever wins this series takes down that godforsaken Oklahoma City Thunder team, because I can't watch that team play basketball anymore. I would love to see the Spurs in the NBA Finals against the Knicks or the Pistons or whoever makes it out of the Eastern Conference. That's all we got for you about tonight's game. If you love the NBA, if you love basketball, make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. Appreciate y'all watching. Cyborg out.